everyone, welcome back to Disney Club Week 3. Thank you for joining me again. So last week we talked about Anti-Bullying Week that was going on in school and celebrating our uniqueness and what makes us all different, and we did a really fantastic job of that in school with our lovely sign language True Colours videos, which lots and lots of parents have watched now, and was really touching and really did fit the theme of what we were talking about in school, so that was amazing. So I kind of want to carry on with that theme a little bit this week and talk about kindness and compassion. So kindness we know all about, we talk about it all the time in school, about being kind to one another. And compassion is linked to kindness, where compassion is understanding how other people might be feeling, even if you don't feel the same. So for example, if your friend falls over in the playground, now you personally haven't fallen over, but you understand how they feel if they're sad that they've hurt their knee or anything like that. And it could even be something that's happened to them that's never happened to you before, but you feel sad for them. And that's compassion, it's understanding other people's feelings, even if they're different to our own. So the first film that I want to talk about relating to this subject is one of my all-time favourite Disney films. I have talked about it a lot, you've probably heard me talking about it. So this one is Moana. Moana is one of my favourite films ever. I think it's amazing. There are so many messages in this film that you might not even realise, and the first one is all about kindness and compassion. So my favourite scene in this film is towards the end of the film when Moana and Maui finally get to find Te Fiti to return the heart to her, and Moana discovers that Te Fiti is not there and Te Fiti is gone. Now, Moana realises that Te Kā, who is the bad guy in this film, is actually Te Fiti, and what Moana does is she shows compassion to that character by returning the heart, something that was taken from her, and understanding how Te Fiti felt to become Te Kā. So Te Fiti was very angry that Maui had stolen the heart. Maui had made a bad choice by doing that. We don't steal things from others, and we all know that that's not right. And Te Kā had made a bad choice by becoming angry and becoming a different person. And Moana understood that feeling, she showed compassion, she showed kindness, and she returned something to her which resolved the problem. Now, if you think of typical films, and not just Disney films, lots of films, I'm going to hold up an example here, which is Sleeping Beauty. So in this film, the bad guy is Maleficent. We all know that Maleficent is the baddie in this film. And the way that Maleficent is defeated at the end of this film is Prince Philip has a sword and fights her. And that is very typical of our films that we watch. There's a good guy, there's a bad guy, there's a fight, the good guy wins, the bad guy's defeated. Now, that doesn't happen in Moana. And the reason I think it's really important is if we think about our real life and our life in school, our lives at home, how often do we see a bad guy, a villain, running around in our lives and a good guy chasing with a sword on a horse, defeating that bad guy? If you think about your day-to-day life, when do you ever see that? Do you see bad guys running around and good guys and they have sword fights and someone wins? That is not representative of our real lives. And although films are brilliant for that fantasy element of enjoying something that's very different to our lives, to understand feelings of how we are in our real lives, we need to see something that's more comparable to something that we can relate to. And I think that's what Moana offers. By showing that you can defeat the typical bad guy with kindness and compassion, if you think of how you could relate that to, say, in school, an argument with a friend. If you have an argument with a friend, a disagreement on the playground, you aren't going to draw your swords and fight until one of you wins. But what you can do is share some kindness, share compassion, listen to each other, understand how each other's feeling, and try to resolve that issue. And of course, there are adults in school that can help you do that. So understanding how to do all that when you're in primary school is not easy, and that's what us adults here are to help you for as well. But I think it's really important to understand that we don't have in real life typical good guys and bad guys. We all have the ability to make good and bad choices. And what I love about Moana is she showed that kindness and compassion, and then that resolved the problem for everyone. So that is one of my main reasons that I really enjoy Moana. Now, another film that I want to talk about, which is linked to what we've just discussed, is Inside Out. And this talks about what I've just said about the different feelings that we all have inside us. So in this film, Riley has a number of different characters in her head which represent emotions. There's disgust, anger, joy, sadness, and all those characters represent the feelings that we might have in our heads in real life. And if we think about Moana, Tafiti had those characters in her head as well. So Tafiti was angered by a bad decision, and she let that anger come out of her, which obviously wasn't the correct way to deal with that situation, because she became this different character, which, you know, caused a lot of problems. And actually, if she had been able to resolve that issue, that wouldn't have happened. And the same, if Maui hadn't stolen that item from her heart, then we wouldn't have had the situation of the bad character appearing. So I think what I want to say with this one is, none of us are really good or bad. We all have different emotions and different feelings, and we all are able to make good and bad choices about how we show those feelings. The most important thing here is that we think about how we are feeling and communicate it. And if we can speak to friends, adults in our lives, and discuss how we might be feeling, we might actually be able to stop those issues before they happen. So if you can think about when you get angry with a friend, you know, instead of doing something that's a bad choice like hitting or shouting, what we can do is think about how we're feeling and why we're feeling. And maybe the same thing for our friend. If you think about why your friend is feeling like that, why your friend is shouting, and you can help them to understand, that would be a really amazing thing. So this week, I would love you to think about all the different feelings that you can have and how you can show those feelings in a really, really positive way. So it's perfectly normal to get angry. Everybody gets angry. It's perfectly normal to get sad. Everybody gets sad. But it's most important how we choose to deal with those feelings. So think about how you could show your anger in a more positive way. And it could even be going to an adult in school and saying, I feel angry that this has happened. That would be a much better choice than acting out on that anger in a negative way, doing things like hitting, shouting. And then the more we talk about these feelings, the more normal that becomes to talk about our feelings, because talking about feelings can be a really, really tricky thing. Even adults struggle with talking about feelings, but we need that to be a really, really normal thing in our lives, so then we can make it better for everyone who needs to tell people how they're feeling and doesn't want to feel nervous. If we all talk about it, it will just be normal. I hope that's helped. I look forward to seeing you next week. Bye everyone.